I have a confession to make. I never thought that an AI engine, machine learning, could be able to do the job of an anthropologist. I was one of those anthropologists that never thought that would be possible. And I was proven wrong. And the reason I was proven wrong is that over almost a decade, I started to do research, manually studying people on the internet through digital ethnography, where I was studying and identifying motivations. And I had a thesis, I had a theory that if I did enough research, if I studied enough people, and I started with the US as my baseline, that eventually I would hit a saturation point. I would no longer uncover new motivations, attitudes, fears, and values, which meant once I have that saturation point, I now have this comprehensive model of human motivation. That was my idea. And because of the work of French sociologists like Pierre Bourdieu, who had sort of 5, 6, 7 archetypes of people, I thought, obviously it's not going to be 5 motivations. The world is so much more complex and so much more nuanced than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. I thought maybe I would hit saturation at about 50, 60 motivations. And boy, was I wrong, because as I continued on this journey, I ended up discovering more and more motivations and attitudes and fears and values. Eventually, we did hit saturation point. But at that point, we had discovered more than 4,500 such motivations and attitudes and fears and values, leading to billions of permutations or billions of types of people, if you will. Now, why was that powerful? Because we had landed on this model that we could now take to a machine. I could now take a motivation like regaining control over your body and health. I could associate this motivation with a specific set of words, with a specific structure of language, and teach the machine to understand that and evolve its understanding over time. I could do the same with all the attitudes and fears and values. So fundamentally, these descriptions are written by the human anthropologist, and we do have a team of anthropologists that maintains a massive library. We call it our ethnographic library. So it's our library of motivations, attitudes, fears, and values. They do maintain that. They do update that. There's about 1% change year over year. So they still do a lot of work to update that. But fundamentally, this is the foundation of our AI engine, because our machine learning process involves teaching the machine to understand what a particular motivation means through the lens of the structure of language, and then evolving that understanding over time. And then, of course, using that understanding to then identify and surface the best motivations and attitudes and fears and values when you, the user, runs a search. So for example, I'm going to change this here. Actually, let gut health remain there. I'm going to run another search here on just something like nutrition. Right? So when I run a search on nutrition here, what's happening is it's amassing that contextual data model of meanings. And then the machine is interpreting this map of meanings and surfacing the most dominant motivations, attitudes, fears, and values. So you'll see here the motivations are quite different. This is about controlling consumption, living a life full of regrets, as opposed to with gut health. It was about regaining control over my body, healthy self-image, about morality, and about falling prey to a vested agenda. So very different motivations and attitudes and fears and values. And of course, there are billions of such permutations. So this technology in an instant still allows us to build incredible empathy for the user behind the scene by looking at millions of these data points and decoding them the same way a human anthropologist would. But I would argue this is significantly more accurate and more powerful, because the machine is able to look at billions of these data points and also evolve its understanding of culture over time.